We are officially winding down the 2025 NFL season, and many of you, including me, have been running plenty of mock drafts. So in today's video, I want to give you guys my first 2-round mock draft of the 2025 NFL draft season. Hit the like and subscribe button if you guys do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator. This is a 2-round one. I don't think we're going to do any trades today. Maybe in the future we'll do a 2-rounder with some trades. Starting off with the Tennessee Titans. I think for Tennessee, you're probably just taking best player available. And for me, this one does come down to Ruben Bain Jr., Caleb Downs, and Arvell Reese. I do think that these three guys are starting to separate themselves within the pack and make their case to be the best player in this draft. For sake of argument, I do think edge rusher is a biggest priority need, although I do think Arvell can transition to be an edge. He's a bit more of a work in progress in terms of edge rusher, so I think for Tennessee, you just go ahead and take I don't want to say a safe pick, but you take the guy that is a more guarantee off the edge, and Ruben Bain Jr., who I think is a total freak show. All right, at number 2, we got the New York Giants. This would be a spot where I would definitely consider a trade down for a team that might be looking at one of these 3 quarterbacks. But again, no trades in this mock draft. I kind of just think they go best player available here too in a somewhat position of need. And while I think Arvell Reese can be a great off-ball linebacker, and the Giants, they could maybe use an off-ball linebacker, ultimately feel like within this position, I might just go ahead and take Caleb Downs. I feel like adding Peter Woods would just be a little bit of overkill on that defensive line. And yes, I know the interior could use a few more pieces, but you've invested so much into it, and you're probably going to go ahead and pay Kayvon Thibodeau. That would just feel like a bit of overkill. I don't mind Jordan Tyson here. I definitely don't mind him at all. I don't also mind Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate a little bit more down the board. This one comes down to me between Caleb Downs and Jordan Tyson. I think when it comes down to it, I really believe this defense has a ton of talent, but I do believe that you need to support your young quarterback by any means necessary. You have Malik Neighbors coming back from injury. You're going to have Cam Scatterbo come back from injury. You have Theo Johnson. You're reworking the offensive line probably this offseason. I'm going to go ahead and take him another receiver in Jordan Tyson, pairing up Jordan Tyson next to Malik Neighbors. That's kind of nasty work. All right, number 3, I got the New Orleans Saints. I do not believe the Saints will be taking a quarterback in this year's draft class. This is another case and scenario here where potentially they might trade down to a team that wants to go ahead and look at these 3 quarterbacks. That all said, for the New Orleans Saints, I think this one's a home run hit. You're going to take Arvell Reese here. Arvell Reese is just one of the freakiest players in this year's draft. You want to play him at edge, he can do that. You want to have him as an off-ball linebacker, he can do that. This is a Saints defense that just needs some difference makers on the defense, and Arvell Reese is just one of those guys. He would be such a great pickup for the Saints. All right, Raiders are up at number 4, and I do think quarterback is 100% in play. However, I think the Las Vegas Raiders are in a position where they have so many holes they need to fill that they just need to start filling in some of these holes. I know the quarterback position is really bad, but this team is not a quarterback away from being competent. I think this team has to address some of their biggest holes: interior defensive line, corner, linebacker, pieces on the offensive line. There's a lot of ways I can go here, but when it comes down to it, I'm just going to take a position here that they tried to fill with Christian Wilkins, but it was a colossal failure. I'm going to take Peter Woods here. I think Peter Woods is a really good player. You know, this year was just kind of a good year for him, but it wasn't this incredible year like we were hoping for. Last year was really good for him. I think that the whole entire Clemson team in general just did not have the year they expected, and it kind of rained on the parade of these guys. Still, I think Peter Woods is a hell of a player. You put him up next to Max Crosby. I think that just kind of knocks down one of the needs you have in that interior defensive line, and you probably address corner and linebacker in rounds 2 and 3. All right, Cleveland at number 5, and I'm going to kind of use the same logic here with the Las Vegas Raiders with the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are in a situation where they have so many major holes on offense, tackle being one of the biggest ones. Both of their guards, I believe, are free agents, and you need some help in the receiving core. I don't think that they believe that Shedeur is the long-term option, but at the same time, if Shedeur gives me enough quality reps, then I'm okay with him being the starting quarterback for at least one more year. And I think this team would be smart to go ahead and start looking at some positions on the offensive line and some pieces in the receiving core to make this team just overall better. And for me, this one kind of comes down to, do I want Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate, or do I want a Spencer Fan out here who I don't think is worth the 5th overall pick, but this offensive line is really bad and they really could use it. The good news is they do have a later 1st-round pick and they have an early 2nd. So I'm going to pass on the offensive line in favor of a difference-making receiver. And I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon because you already have Jerry Jeudy, who feels like he's public enemy number one for every Shador fan right now, and maybe rightfully so. He hasn't been great this year, but I just think Mekhi Lemon is a really safe pick. He's somebody that he's just consistently open. And yes, Carnell Tate is an Ohio State receiver, and he's going to get comps of like JSN and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and all those guys. He's a really, really good player, and he easily could be my pick here. But I'm going to go ahead and just take Mekhi Lemon because I think his body type is really what this Browns team needs. Just a guy that can consistently get open, find space. He's smart. He's going to be a good player. In fact, he's going to be a great player. A lot of people compare him to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I can kind of see it. All right, Washington up at number 6. Not going to overthink this one. Caleb Downs in the back end of that defense. That would be your Earl Thomas, per se, that Dan Quinn used to have in Seattle. Caleb Downs would be such a perfect fit in Washington. All right, 7 with the New York Jets. Look, I don't think this team has to force a quarterback here, but I will say the offense has a lot of talented pieces on it. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Adonai Mitchell just had one of his best games of his career. The offensive line has some pieces, and given the fact you kind of have your pick of which one you want here at quarterback, I don't think you overthink this one. Ty Simpson has been struggling a little bit the past few weeks. The game against Oklahoma was not particularly great, but I thought versus Auburn, he really bounced back and played very well. I know Jets fans are probably going to like Fernando Mendoza. He's a really quality player. But when it comes down to it, I'm starting to like Dante Moore a whole lot more. I know that game versus Indiana was not the greatest of games, but man, he's just been on a heater since that game. The game versus USC, the game versus Washington. I mean, he was just dissecting the team. Penn State, he played very well in too. I'm going to take Dante Moore. I think he's the highest upside player, and I also believe that he also has a relatively safe floor as well. You know, maybe he sits for a couple of games behind like a Tyrod Taylor or somebody like that and then takes over, or maybe he's just your day one starter. The Jets are in a position where they can kind of do that because they have a good offense. They have pieces to support a young quarterback. All right, number 8, I have the Arizona Cardinals, and I think personally they're probably going to go ahead and get rid of Kyler Murray. But this is a team that cannot really afford to wait around and, you know, mosey around with Jacoby Brissett for too many years. I think this would be a team that would be wise to potentially consider taking a quarterback. Jacoby Brissett can start this year, and maybe next year the quarterback steps in, or maybe it's kind of like what they did with Drake May in New England, where Jacoby started for the first few weeks, then Drake May took over, and as we all know, Drake May is freaking awesome now. So I think that's a very big possibility. This team does need help in linebacker. You know, I could consider potentially like a Sonny Styles here who's really good, but I like CJ Allen and I like Anthony Hill. I even like Deontay Lawson. I think I can take that in round 2. And there's just not an offensive lineman that I think is really, frankly, worth the 8th overall pick, especially with who's still on the board. So that all said, I'm going to pass on Ty Simpson because I think the Cardinals are going to look at his height. It's listed at 6'2". I think he's more like 6 foot. I think they're going to be a little bit cautious with that. And they're going to take the bigger quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, who, man, he's playing really well, man. He is playing some really good football. He can make every single throw on the field. He's got to be a bit quicker as a processor, and he's got to be able to handle pressure a little bit better. But you have Marvin Harrison Jr. back there. You have Michael Wilson. You have Trey McBride. We'll see about running back. I also think Jeremiah Love is totally in play here. But I'm going to go ahead and take their franchise quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. And they're probably going to trade Kyler Murray. And, you know, who knows? They might end up getting a first-round pick out of him. Probably not, but they'll get something for him. All right, number 9, I got the LA Rams. And, I mean, Ty Simpson is still on the board. But I'm going to pass on Ty Simpson here. I like Ty Simpson a lot. In fact, he was my QB1 for a large chunk of the season. And I still think very highly of him. I still think he's a first-round caliber quarterback. But I just worry a little bit about the size of him and how that might affect how teams look at him. And in this situation, if I'm the LA Rams, yes, I know corner has been actually not a huge issue this year. But there's some really good quality corners still on the board here. And if I can get a true difference maker, then I'm not going to overthink it. The other thing that I would also consider would be taking like a Spencer Fano. Like, this is kind of best case scenario for LA Rams fans. And I mean, you can't really go wrong either way. I will say they have a pick at 29. And I kind of think I might be able to snag a corner in the back end of round 1. Like maybe a Colton Hood, or I like Brandon Cisse. I like Keith Abney a lot. I think I even like Chris Johnson. I think he's a total stud. I think they might be able to wait on a corner and take the tackle, because I just don't think, I think after Spencer Fano and Maui Noah, it kind of gets a little bit weak at tackle. So I'm going to take Spencer Fano here, let him play. Let him play at right tackle opposite of Alaric Jackson. I mean, I think this would be best case scenario for him. But if you also do want to go corner like Mansour Delane, I obviously totally understand it. Or Jermon McCoy. But I'm going to go ahead and take Spencer Fano here to be my future right tackle of the future. All right, number 10, I got the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but I'm going to take Francis Mauigoa. I'm going to kick him inside to play guard. I think he is a better guard than tackle, but, you know, in a pinch, if you have an injury at tackle, he can be your starting tackle. Obviously, you have Mims, you have Orlando Brown, so it's not the biggest of needs, but interior offensive line's a big one, and I think Francis Mauigoa just steps in immediately at guard and is a major upgrade for them, so no need to overthink that pick. All right, 11 with the Minnesota Vikings. I really wonder if they would consider Ty Simpson here, because JJ McCarthy has just been so bad. Like, he just has been a horrific starter for this team, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're probably going to sign a veteran, like potentially a Mac Jones, or maybe they'll swindle Daniel Jones back to Minnesota. I'm not sure, but I think they're going to probably go for a veteran quarterback and let JJ just kind of sit and learn and try to get better. We'll see about that one. I got a freak show in Jeremiah Love available here. I mean, the run game has been fine for this team. You have Aaron Jones, you have Jordan Mason. I don't really think Jeremiah Love is like the biggest of needs for this team. But, you know, there is a Mansour Delane, there's a Jermon McCoy. I think both those guys would be fun on this team. You know, there's a lot of players here I could potentially take, but Jeremiah Love to me is he's a borderline blue chip prospect, and he would be probably my favorite to win the Heisman. So I'm taking Jeremiah Love here to Minnesota. Just, you know, if you're going to have a young quarterback who's struggling, let's hand the ball off 30 times a game to Jeremiah Love, who's got fresh legs and he can absolutely ball. That could make the life of JJ McCarthy a whole lot easier. So we'll take Jeremiah Love here. All right, Dolphins up at number 12. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback. I think you got to start plugging away at some of these holes on your roster. And when it comes down to it, I got two really good cornerbacks available here, and those are some of their bigger positional needs. I know they've had some decent play this year, but they got guys who are on one-year deals, no like long-term piece. When it comes down to it, Jermon McCoy's injury is really interesting to me because coming off an ACL injury, we haven't seen him play at all this year. I do believe there would be some teams who are a little bit cautious about that injury and want to make sure he can actually play with this injury after this injury. So I'll pass on Jermon McCoy here and take Mansour Delane, who, man, one of the best man coverage corners in this class. He is so sticky in coverage, and, you know, he's not the biggest or strongest players, but, man, he'll wrap up on you. He's a feisty, competitive player. He's the type of player that a team like Miami really could use. All right, 13, I got the Kansas City Chiefs, and, man, if you watched that game on Thanksgiving, you saw those corners just getting absolutely crowded up by George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb all game long. And that includes Trent McDuffie, by the way. That did include him. I got Jermon McCoy available here, and assuming he is healthy and he looks healthy during the combine and pro day and everything like that, I would definitely consider him here. I know that corner hasn't been the biggest of issues in years past, but I feel like Dallas just kind of put a beat down on them and really kind of exposed some flaws in that secondary. So I would consider that here. I also think maybe another edge like a David Bailey to pair opposite of George Karlaftis. I just don't think he's their style of guy. I actually think Keldrick Falk's a bit more of their style, but if it's me, I'm taking Jermon McCoy here, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Pair up Jermon McCoy with all the other guys that are playing well, Trent McDuffie and them. I think Jermon is just a really good boundary corner and kind of finishes up that secondary a tad bit here. So I'm taking Jermon McCoy to Kansas City. All right, 14, I got Pittsburgh, and they actually kind of lucked into a quarterback here. I'm going to take Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson has a genuine chance of falling a little bit because of the fact that he is a shorter player. And we're seeing a lot of these shorter quarterbacks, minus like Brock Purdy, have not really fully panned out. Now, Bryce Young still has some time to, get to that point. But Bryce's biggest concern was that he was short, and it has impacted his game at Carolina. I don't think Ty Simpson is as short as a Kyler Murray or a Bryce Young, but he's also not very tall. So I'll take Ty Simpson here. I think Pittsburgh could be a team that, they badly need a quarterback. They could be in the market for a Kyler or a Mac Jones, but I also think they just need their franchise guy, and I like Ty Simpson a lot. I think he's a really good quality player that can make throws all across the yard, capable arm. He's still very young, has some room to grow, but he's a good player that Pittsburgh, I think, would be wise to go ahead and select here. And, frankly, he could have been a top 10 pick, and he fell right into their laps. All right, 15, I got the Carolina Panthers, and, man, Carnell Tate is staring me down a little bit here. However, I think that you've invested so much into this offense, and there's only so much more you can do. You're getting great play out of Ted McMillan. You're getting great play out of Jalen Coker, right? You got some good tight ends. The running game's been good. The offensive line's been working out. I just can't really. If there was a receiver like a Mekhi Lemon here, I would take him, but I can't do that. I'm going to go ahead and take Sonny Styles here for this Panthers team. He is an absolute freak show. 6'5", 243, 88.0 coverage grade. The only reason why he is not going higher and why Arvell is going higher is because, number one, Arvell Reese is a total fucking freak show, pardon my language, but he also can come off the edge and be a bit of a blitzer, and he might be able to play a 3-4 outside linebacker at times, or shoot, I don't know, I don't, maybe he could play a 4-3 edge. He's just that type of guy. I don't really know if Sonny Styles can do that per se, but a team in Carolina that does, you know, could use a difference-making off-ball linebacker, like that's exactly what Sonny Styles is. A 0% missed tackle rate is just, it's just nutty. I mean, he's just been an absolute freak show all year long. And a team like Carolina, I know linebacker is not like a sexy position to take a pick at, but Sonny Styles to me is worthy of this pick to Carolina. All right, next up, I got the Dallas Cowboys, and I got to be honest with you, I feel like with the way the board fell here, this is maybe doomsday scenario for this team. By the way, Dallas on a bit of a heater. I don't know if they're going to be picking at pick number 16. It might be a bit more down here, but now they're at 16. I do think this is maybe like arguably worst case scenario for the team because the two top corners are off the board. Caleb Downs is off the board. You're also now looking at Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese been off the board. I think they'd probably take an edge here. I'm not the biggest Keldrick Falk fan, and I just don't love his fit with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they would be a team that would be interested more in like a pure pass rusher opposite of Donovan Ezeraku. I know you have guys like Jadeveon Clowney playing well. You have James Houston making some plays back there, but realistically, you're going to want a younger piece. Those are more depth options, and I know you have Dante Fowler on a one-year deal. I'm not sure you bring him back. I'm not the biggest David Bailey fan, but this guy can absolutely fly and get after the quarterback. Assuming some of the off-the-field issues, because he's been in some silly situations, like getting into it with the cameraman, and I think he stepped on or spit on somebody. Don't quote me on that. But if he can get all that checked out, Dallas with Donovan Ezeraku, Quinnen Williams, Osa Digizua, and then David Bailey, like, oh boy, that's kind of nasty. And they have another first-round pick down the board where I can consider a cornerback there as well. So I'll take David Bailey to the Dallas Cowboys. All right, 17, I got the Detroit Lions. This offensive line has not been as good as what it has been in years past. And this team in general, like they're showing some signs of regression, right? In terms of the offensive line has not been as good as it has been in years past. The secondary cannot stay healthy. I want to say Terran Arnold is now on IR, and he hasn't been really what they have been hoping for him to become. You look at the interior defensive line, you know, Tyleik Williams is still kind of figuring it out. Just has not been the year they thought they was going to be. And now you're having your head coach take over play calling duties, and we'll see if they can respond because they just had a bad loss to Green Bay. Now they got the Dallas Cowboys this week, and that game is on Thursday, so that'll be pretty interesting. In this situation, though, I think they would probably go ahead. I don't really know if guard is really their biggest need. It's more like a center more than anything. Frank Ragnow being gone kind of killed this team, and there's not really a center here that I would take unless you believe that Ione can play center. Maybe he could. I don't know. Maybe you can kick somebody inside to play center, like a Tate Ratledge or somebody like that. I don't know, man. I'm going to probably end up taking maybe a corner here. Like the corners for this team, man, it just have not been able to stay healthy, and that secondary is consistently banged up, and I like a lot of these corners here. Like Colton Hood just kind of screams Detroit Lion to me. And a lot of ways I could go here. I'm going to go ahead and take Colton Hood. I think he's a really good, scrappy player that a team like Detroit, I think, would like his play style. Obviously, Terran Arnold, you're not giving up on him, but he hasn't really fully panned out yet. I think Colton Hood, he is a player that, I mean, and frankly, I wasn't the biggest fan of Terran Arnold coming out of college. I think Colton Hood is a really good prospect that not necessarily taking over his job, but there'll be definitely some competitions and some moving some pieces around back there. 18, I got the Houston Texans. You got a ton of holes on the offensive line. Though they're not playing as bad as they were to start the year off, still, you got some holes to figure out. I'm going to take the best one available here in Olavega Ione. I can never pronounce Olavega. I apologize. I cut that out. Ione, you're going to be a Houston Texan. Filling that guard, you got Arianti Ursary. You got a few other pieces that you're kind of okay with. Ione can start at guard for you, and you just need to rework that offensive line, and this is potentially a jumping off point for that team. Or maybe the finishing of that offensive line. All right, Baltimore at 19. Carnell Tate is here. I'm taking Carnell Tate. He's a total freak show at receiver, having a career year for him. 793 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's got 85% contested catch rate, 0% drop rate, 0 drops on the year. This is not somebody who's going to be a yak machine, but you already have Zay Flowers. So this is kind of what you wanted Rashad Bateman to be, except Carnell Tate is just better. So give me Carnell Tate here. All right, number 20, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team needs to find a way to be more disruptive. They need to find a way to get after the quarterback, and they need dudes, some difference makers within that front seven that can just run after the quarterback. And I think when it comes down to it, Cassius Howell, who has shorter arms, but in my opinion has like a 3-4 outside linebacker, which is what his role would be on this team, who is going to be used strictly on passing downs. Like, hey, just fly after the quarterback, get as much pressure as possible. Like, that's what Cassius Howell can do. And you put him opposite of some of the other guys you already have out there. Your linebacking core, we're probably going to spend the 52nd overall pick on a linebacker. Let's take Cassius Howell here to come off the edge and just put some pressure on a quarterback. 21, I got the Buffalo Bills, and I think I'm going to take Keldrick Falk here. Falk is a little bit of, I don't want to say a project, but he's a bit of a work in progress right now. He's a big dude, 6'6", 285. I think he'll probably weigh in about 280-ish around the combine. I think the question for Keldrick Falk is like, where do you want to use him at on this Bills team? Do you want him to play inside fully or like a 3-4 edge, which is where I think Buffalo will ultimately use him. He's a good run defender, so a team in Buffalo that's not been the greatest at stuff in the run this year could use his skill set, and he can 100% get after the quarterback. Obviously there's some receivers here that I think you might consider like a Denzel Boston who would be good for this team, but I'm going to take Keldrick Falk here to, kind of add some pieces to that defense that needs some talent there. They need some guys. All right, 22, I got the Philadelphia Eagles, and right now this team is kind of falling apart a little bit, but I still think they have all the talent in the world on the offensive end. You have Saquon. I'm assuming you're going to have A.J. Brown. You got Smitty. You have Hurts. You have your 2 tackles. Like, I'm just not too worried about that offense from a personnel perspective. I think they just need a schematic change on that side. Defensively speaking, we'll see what happens with Jalen Phillips. I'm not sure they're going to be able to bring him back. If they can't, then I do think TJ Parker and his skill set definitely comes into play here. Pair him next to Nolan Smith. That could be nice. I also think outside corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell would be ideal here. And there's a couple guys I really like. I think Keith Abney makes a ton of sense for this Eagles team. I think Terrell probably kicks inside in the nickel. So I don't think they really need. They have Quinyon. And I like Brandon Cisse, but that game versus Texas A&M is one to forget. Let's just put it that way. So this pick for me comes down to either TJ Parker or Keith Abney. If you re-sign Jalen Phillips, which I'm going to assume they're going to do because they spent a decent pick on him, then I'm going to go ahead and take Keith Abney to pair opposite of Quinyon and Cooper Najee and kind of fill out that young secondary with the last sort of piece here. I think Keith Abney is a hell of a player. PFSN compares him to Jalen Johnson, and I think it's a great comparison in terms of their play style and size profile and all that stuff. So give me Keith Abney here to the Philadelphia Eagles. 23, we got the New York Jets. They took Dante Moore with their first-round pick. I think Caleb Banks here as your replacement for Quinn Williams. That's not too shabby. I also like Caden McDonald. Caden is much more of just a pure run stuffer who, he can make a couple plays, but he's just a big dude, 6'3", 326, and he's going to stuff the run. I think Caleb Banks is kind of the same kind of style where he is just a pure, big, physical run stuffer. But I think he has a little bit of some juice as a guy that can get up there and put some pressure on a quarterback. He's not going to be Quinnen Williams, but you're also taking him at pick 23. So he can be a guy. He is a lot better than Mozzie Smith. So we'll take Caleb Banks here to be your Quinnen Williams replacement. Next up, San Francisco at number 24. I think this team would be wise to, look at edge here, and I think TJ Parker makes some sense. Micah Williams is never going to be a great pass rusher. TJ had 12 sacks last year, this year 6 sacks. I think he's still got a lot of juice as a pass rusher, and I think he's a bit more of a complete player compared to Micah Williams. Obviously, Micah will get reps, and you're going to rotate in TJ Parker and Micah Williams and Nick Bosa. I think those are your 3 main guys, and you have Alfred Collins up the middle and some other pieces there too. I like TJ Parker here to kind of fill up the unit, especially with how the offensive line room is kind of breaking down. I could take Caden Proctor. I'm not the biggest Proctor fan. I worry about that Bama tackle with massive legs. It's kind of a slow foot guy. I'm going to take TJ Parker here to fill out that edge room a tad bit more. All right, LA is up at number 25, and I think this team, they could be a spot for Proctor if they want to stick him inside to play guard and just have Mekhi Becton on one side, Caden on the other side with your massive tackles, Slater and Joe Alt. That's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. I like Jennings Dunker too. I know he's not having the greatest year at tackle, but I think you kick him inside to play guard. He is a feisty competitor. I think edge is also a bit of a need here too. Although I don't really love how the board fell here. I actually think if I'm able to take like a Mateo Uyagalele, I would like that a lot in round 2. So we'll see how the board falls. There's a couple other guys here too that I really do like a Gabe Yakis, Zion Young. There's some good talent there down the board there at edge. So not the biggest of needs here. I'm going to go with the offensive lineman here. I'll take Caden Proctor. I'm going to stick him inside at left guard. You pair him next to Mekhi Becton. You have Joe Alt. Injuries have really killed this offensive line. So really it's just, can you stay healthy? And if they can, then that'd be nice. All right, 26, the Cleveland Browns. They took Mekhi Lemon round 1. I'm going to go ahead and probably take Caleb Lomu here, who I think is, or you know what, actually, let me pass on that. I'm going to take Austin Servold here. He's currently playing at left tackle for Ohio State. I think he can also play guard. I think this is a situation where you kind of just figure out where he's best at. Is it tackle or is it guard? And either way it works out, that's going to be your guy. I think Lomu's a bit of a project, and I think he needs to sit for a year or two. I think Austin can start right away, and whether it's guard or tackle, be a quality player for you. So we'll take Austin Servold there. Dallas up at number 27. They took David Bailey in round 1. I got to go something in the secondary. Savon Ravel has been really good, and you have Kalen Carson, and you got Deron Bland. I think they could use potentially a nickel like an Avion Terrell. I would worry a little bit about him in the run game, but, you know, he's a feisty competitor. You know, he's got a decent run grade. He's just not that big. He's about 5'11", maybe 5'10", $180. He's a good player, though. He's sticky in coverage. I'm going to play him inside, probably to play in the nickel. I know that's a bit sketchy because you gotta be a bit physical at the line of scrimmage at times, but I think with his size, pair him up with Bland, pair him up with Savon Ravel, I think Avion Terrell fits in kind of nicely there to maybe finish off that cornerback trio, and they'll have to find safeties in the free agent market or in the later portion of the draft, though they don't have a ton of draft capital. All right, Seattle's up at number 28, and with the way the board fell here, I'm kind of leaning towards either a linebacker, but linebacker's not been that bad for this team at all. CJ Allen's here. Corner is also in play here because Josh Jobe and Reek Woolen are both free agents. The question will be, would it be a Brandon Cisse spot with his size, 6 foot 190, he's a decent run defender. I shouldn't say decent, he's a really good run defender. He's in play. I think Chris Johnson, he's light. He's only I think he's a $180. They haven't posted at 195. I think I've heard that he's about a 180 in terms of size, but man, he's so good in coverage. I just worry about his size next to Devon Witherspoon, and Witherspoon's a feisty player too. So I'm going to go either Chris Johnson, who I've fallen in love with, or Jennings Dunker and kick Dunker inside to play right guard, or I could take Emmanuel Pregnon. You know what? That's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. I'm going to take Emmanuel Pregnon. The guard class this year is not particularly special. Pregnon is a good player that could find his way into the back end of round 1. They took Gray Zabel last year to play left guard. Now you need somebody to play in replacement of Bradford, and that's what Pregnon's going to do here. Our Rams up at 29. They took Spencer Fano round 1. I think you're going to go ahead and probably take a corner in round 2. The question would be, who do you go with here, right? I think Cisse is a really good talent. He's a freaky twitched up athlete that's going to dominate the combine, but he's got a little bit of some inconsistencies in coverage, especially within man, and the game versus Texas A&M and LSU was a little bit sketchy. But he's a good run defender. Or do I like Chris Johnson a little bit more? I like AJ Harris, but this was a rough year for him in terms of just the numbers. Like, it was just not the year. I still think he gets drafted if he does go. I believe he's a junior, so we'll see if he returns or not. For me, I feel like LA is a team that would just fall in love with Chris Johnson, and they do have some corners that are a little bit undersized in terms of their weight distribution. So I think that Chris Johnson would be somebody that they look at and say, he's a lockdown in coverage. He's a decent run defender. Sure, some physical guys will get after him a little bit, but we have the system in place to be okay with that. And I know secondary is not like their biggest of needs, but I mean, I'm not taking a quarterback here. There's just not one to really take in round 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take cornerback Chris Johnson, who I think is a little bit underrated. I think he's a late first, early second round pick in my books. All right, Denver up at number 30. I'm going to take Kenyon Sadiq here. Not going to overthink it. They need some more juice in their receiving core, and I think Kenyon Sadiq is just a twitched up tight end that they could really find a lot of ways to use. All right, Chicago up at number 31. This is their first pick. I need some pieces on the defensive line pretty badly, and I mean, Caden McDonald and Kristen Miller are both staring me down right now. I think Kristen Miller has a higher upside as a pass rusher, but I think Caden McDonald might just be the safer pick as somebody who It's going to be dominant against the run, and he's not going to give you a ton of pass rushing juice. But for a team that ranks 30th in opponents' yards per rush, as you can see right here, I think Caden McDonald will be just the right guy to get that number down to about a 4.0 instead of a 5.2. So give me Caden McDonald here. All right, New England at number 32. What a crazy place for them to be at. I'm going to take a guard here, and that's going to be Jennings Dunker. Or I could take Caleb Lomu and let him develop at right tackle, and that's not a terrible idea at all. But I'm going to take Jennings Dunker. I'm going to kick him inside to play guard. I know you have the dude you took last year playing left guard. I think you need a right guard, so we'll take Jennings Dunker right here. All right, we are going to enter into round 2. Before we get to that, if you guys do enjoy draft content and you want to see more from myself, I have a podcast called First and 10 where we cover everything in the draft: position rankings, mock drafts, free agency, team rebuilds. Check out the podcast, link in the description. We're going to get to round 2. Hit the like and subscribe button. We're going to go really fast through these ones so I don't keep you guys for another hour and 50 minutes. So let's get into it. All right, 33, I got the Tennessee Titans. They took Ruben Bainer round 1. I think you probably take maybe the best corner available. And to me, that would be Brandon Cisse. He's got twitch, he's got juice. And I think Tennessee could be a team that really hone into his craft a little bit. 34, I got the Giants. They took Jordan Tyson. I think now you look at offensive line here. Assuming you bring back Illuminor, I think you can maybe draft Caleb Lomu to develop behind him, or you can have Lomu start at right tackle, kick Illuminor inside. Either way it works out. 35, the Saints took Arvell Reese, and I got Denzel Boston here staring me down. Denzel Boston with Chris Olave. I think that duo could be the future right there. Las Vegas at 36, they took Peter Woods round 1. I think maybe corner is totally in play. I do feel like cornerback has definitely kind of gotten a little thin here right now. But linebacker's still very, very good. And I got CJ Allen here, and I got Anthony Hill. I'm going to go ahead and take... I think Las Vegas would be wise to take CJ Allen. He's a really, really good run defender that I think has some decent chops in coverage as well. 37, I got Cleveland. They took Mekhi Lemon and Austin Servold here. I think you kind of double down here, potentially with some playmakers. And I mean, I also could look at the offensive line too. I'll look at peek real quick. I think this is... I like Caleb Tiernan a tad bit, and I think Jake Slaughter is a good player too, but I'm going to pass on that. I need a receiver. I'm going to go KC Concepcion, who had a really good game versus Texas. This guy has the juice. He has the speed, and, you know, we'll see what happens with Jerry Jeudy. Maybe they cut him, maybe they don't, but you got Mekhi Lemon, you got KC Concepcion, although I do think that size issue might actually be one that scares me a little bit with him. You know what, actually? Let me pass on him, and I might go Ian Strong here, 6'3", 211, or Elijah Surratt. You know, I'm going to go Elijah Surratt here, 6'2", 213. This is your jump ball winner. And you have Elijah Surratt as your big down the field jump ball guy. Pair him up with Mekhi Lemon, who can win underneath. And then Jerry Jeudy can kind of just be your do-it-all sort of guy. So, long way to get to him. 38, I got the Houston Texans. I think they're going to be pretty diligent at fixing the offensive line in the offseason. And we already took a guard here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a running back for this team because you do have Woody Marks, but I think you need to pair somebody opposite of him. I love Jadarian Price, but I'm going to go ahead and take Jonah Coleman, who has not really ended the season on the brightest of notes, but he is a really good running back that is a downhill, more physical bowling ball style guy. He's got to bring the knee drive up a tad bit more, but I'm going to take Jonah Coleman here for the Houston Texans. Next up at number 39, we have the New York Jets. They took Dante Moore. They took Caleb Banks. I think receiver is still a bit of a need for this team. I could go KC Concepcion and have him be our punt returner and kick returner. I know you took Aaron Smith last year, but I don't have a ton of faith in him as a player. But A.D. Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, KC Concepcion. Run me that one real quick. That's an easy pick here for me. Arizona would have loved to have him. That would be their Greg Dortch replacement. But they took Fernando Mendoza round 1. I think you need to protect your young quarterback here. Or you know what? We did talk about this a bit earlier. We talked about linebacker. We're not going to pass on Anthony Hill. If Anthony does come out this year's class, he is a total freak show at linebacker. He's a big dude, 6'3", 238. He can run very well. He's decent enough in coverage, but he is a difference maker in the run game, and that's why I'm going to take Anthony Hill here. Atlanta's first pick at 41. I would not be surprised if they tried to trade back a little bit just to try and get a little bit extra draft capital. I think receivers in play here, somebody opposite of Drake London to put some more weapons out there. But I also think interior defensive line is still a bit of a need here. And I got Christian Miller right here. You invested in the edge this past draft. Now you should invest a bit in the interior. Christian Miller is a borderline first-round pick, so I think he's really good there. All right, the Bengals took Francis Maui-Noah in round 1. And fortunately for them, a lot of edges have actually kind of dropped here. I'm not the biggest Romeo Height fan, but he can get after the quarterback. He's got 8 sacks on the season. He's been a pretty consistent pass rusher all year long, and this team just needs a dude that can be a straight-up disruptor in the backfield, and that's what Romeo Height could be here for Cincinnati. All right, the Vikings took Jeremiah Love in round 1. I think now I'm maybe looking at a safety here, and AJ Hawsey's on the board. I love Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Kamari Ramsey also makes a ton of sense with his versatility, and I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and use him in here. You can see based off his play distribution down here, he can play on the slot, he can play in the box, he can play deep. Last year, played a bit more deep. Now he's playing a bit more close to the line of scrimmage. Wherever you need this guy, he's a freak show. He can make the plays happen. I want to take Kamari Ramsey here for the Minnesota Vikings. All right, Miami took Mansour Delane in round 1. I think now I'm looking to add a playmaker opposite of Jalen Waddle, and Chris Bell is here, and he is a really fun player to watch. He's got some nuanced things that he's got to figure out. He also has a couple drops on the year. But, man, he is a fun player to go out there and make some plays, and he can win deep. So I'm going to take Chris Bell out of Louisville here. All right, in round 1, Kansas City took Jermod McCoy. That's a good pick. I think you need to reestablish the ground game, and I'm going to take Jadarian Price from Notre Dame. He might be a third-round pick. Like, that might be where he goes. But this running back class, to me, is just not the greatest. So if it's me, I have a chance here at 45 to reestablish what I really could use. At running back, I'm going to take Jadarian Price. I think he's somebody that's going to start flying up draft boards, especially if he does go at the combine. All right, Pittsburgh took Ty Simpson. I think you need to give him another weapon on the outside. You have DK Metcalf. I think Chris Brazel makes a ton of sense. I think this is a guy that should be getting a bit more buzz around the late first, early second. 46 here to me is really good value for Chris Brazel, who can win downfield. He's a fast, athletic receiver, but he's also a really solid route runner too. So I'm going to take Chris Brazel here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Carolina took Sonny Styles in round 1. I think maybe now would be a decent time to add a receiver. They have so much size back there that I kind of feel like Jeremy Bernard is just a perfect player for them as just a safety blanket for Bryce Young, somebody that can consistently win underneath, play on the slot. You have Jalen Coker, you have Xavier Legette, you have Ted McMillan, a ton of size, but I don't really know if any of those guys excel inside the slot. I mean, Coker can, but he's so big. Give me Jeremy Bernard here for Carolina. All right, the New York Jets are up, and I'm really loving their draft class so far. I think I'm going to probably take a corner here, although safety is also totally in play for me as well. AJ Halsey, AJ Harris, Dalen Everett, Rod Moore. You know what? I might go with AJ Halsey here, who's a really solid player in coverage, but he's a bit of a thumper. Like, he can hit people, can win deep. I'm going to go with AJ Halsey here out of LSU, who I haven't watched his film in a couple weeks. It's been a little bit, so I'm a little foggy on him. But from what I remember, he can move around a decent bit, 6 foot, 222. I wonder if he plays inside a little bit more, but this is a Jets team that they could use some safety, so go ahead and give me AJ Halsey here. All right, Detroit in round 1 took Colton Hood. I think now I'm looking at center here, and Jake Slaughter fell right into their lap, so go ahead and give me Jake Slaughter here from Florida. Houston's back up. They took a offensive lineman and a running back. I kind of think you double down on offensive lineman here too. I don't know if Gooseby goes pro, but if he does go pro, I think this is going to be my pick here. I like Caleb Tiernan. He is a feisty competitor that I think can play guard. I think he has got some arm length issues though. Trevor Gooseby, who I'm like 88% sure is going to return back to college. If he does go pro, I think he has his chance of working his way into being a day 1 or day 2 pick, because he's a really good player. And there's been so much issues with that offensive line at Texas, but Gooseby is a sort of a developmental piece. He's only a redshirt sophomore, but for a team in Houston, they can, this might be a guy you stash on the bench for a year and let him develop, or maybe you let him sit to start the year off and then let him play the back end. I think he can also start right away. I think he goes back to college, but if he doesn't, give me Trevor Gooseby to Houston there. All right, Baltimore's up. They took Carnell Tate round 1. I think they need some guys in the back end within this defense here, and linebacker is totally in play. Interior defensive line is also 100% in play here, and I got Amari Washington here, who's got a nasty first step, can get off the ball really well. He's got some game issues he's got to continue to figure out, but he's still young, still figuring it out. Got a couple sacks in the year. Give me Amari Washington out of Oregon. Tampa Bay took Cassius Howell. I think linebacker is a big need here, and I'm going to take Deontay Lawson. I think as in coverage, he can definitely improve, but he is a downhill player that just can make plays in the backfield. He is one of the better run defenders in this year's draft class, and I'm going to take Deontay Lawson. Anytime you can take a Bama linebacker, don't overthink it. All right, they took Keldrick Falk round 1. I would have also considered LT Overton, who kind of he's kind of similar to Keldrick Falk in terms of that size and stature, but I'm not going to take him there. I think secondary is a bit of a need. I think safety is also a bit of a one too. Dylan Thieneman, I like him a bit. Rod Moore, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, I like him a lot. He's a really good player. I think they're both in play. I wonder if maybe they would consider an edge here too. Like Mason Thomas has a crap ton of juice to come off the edge. Not sure if he's ever going to be a great run defender, but man, he can fly. I like Joshua Josephs a lot. I think he's a potential first-round pick if he tests well. But you just invested in Keldrick Falk, so I'm going to go ahead and take a safety here, and I'm going to go ahead and take Emmanuel McNeil Warren, just because I think he's a better run defender than Dylan Thieneman. And I think if you guys get a chance to watch this guy's film, I know Toledo, not the greatest of competition, but man, he is a fun watch. My co-host on First and 10, B-Ross, loves this guy, and if he likes him, I like him, so I'm going to go ahead and take him there for Buffalo. Philadelphia up at 54. They took Keith Abney round 1. I think now maybe you find a bit of a pass rush partner to Nolan Smith. And I'm going to go, I could see them going for the Oklahoma guy. I think Tennessee is also in play. I like both these guys a lot. I'm going to take Joshua Josephs just because I think he's got a higher ceiling as a run defender. And I think he's a really good pass rusher too. So I'll take Joshua Josephs. All right, Indianapolis at 55. This is their first pick. Obviously, they traded it for Sauce Gardner. Corner is, I think, fine. I think linebacker potentially could be in play. If I'm going to take one, it's probably going to be Jacob Rodriguez or Torian York. Kind of feels a little early for both those guys, in my opinion. Guard, especially right guard, Caleb Tiernan. I think that's probably who they would lean towards. I know he's got shorter arms, which is kind of an issue, but I think I'm going to go Caleb Tiernan here, who is somebody who I think kicks inside to play guard. And, obviously you have Quentin Nelson, who's a really good person to learn from. So I'll take Caleb Tiernan there for the Colts. 56, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I think they could use a tackle. Man, this tackle class is just, do they take Nicky Prongos and just say, you know what? We know you're a complete work in progress, but let you sit behind Trent Williams for a year or two and just figure it out. He's got a ton of potential, but he just doesn't have a ton of reps really played. This year is really his first year being the guy. I might take Nicky Prongos here. He is a major projection. If you want somebody safer, then Carter Smith might be a safer pick, but he's also got a very low ceiling. So I might go with Nicky Prongos here, who I'm not the biggest fan of Nicky Prongos, but he does have potential to really be a good player if he can fully develop. So I'll take Prongos here just to sit behind Trent Williams for a year or two, which I think is ideal for him as a player if he does decide to go pro. All right, we talked about this. 57, I talked about it when we did their pick. We took Caden Proctor to play left guard. I'm going to go ahead and take Mateo Uiagalelei to pair opposite of Tuli Tuipulotu. No, I'm not just doing that because they're both, I don't know what they are. What are they? Island boys? I don't know what they are, but I'm not doing that because of that. But I just think they like bigger edge rushers, and Tuli's so good at getting after the quarterback. Mateo's so good at stuffing the run and has potential to be a great pass rusher. So give me that one right there. Jacksonville's first pick, and man, I never know what to do with this team. I think I might just take an interior defensive lineman here. I don't really feel like edge is the biggest of needs. I could take LT Overton here. He's just kind of staring me down a little bit. Interior offensive line is also a need. If Connor Lew does go pro, I know he didn't have the greatest of years when he was playing, but he had a really good 2024 season. If he goes pro, I don't think he will. We'll take Connor Lew. I don't think he's going to go pro because he's coming off an injury, but if he does, then we'll take Connor Lew here for Jacksonville. All right, Green Bay's first pick of this draft. Obviously, their first pick goes to the Dallas Cowboys in the Micah Parsons trade. They're up at 59 here. I think Rashawn Gary's days might be numbered, and if you're going to replace Rashawn Gary, then I think you're probably going to need somebody to replace him. I feel like Quincy Rhodes is a bit more of their style because you already have, Mason Thomas is kind of like he's what Micah Parsons already does, being a pure pass rusher, and Micah's one of the best at it. I think Quincy could be the guy that just is more of like the DeMarcus Lawrence style, a bigger, and he can get after the quarterback a decent bit. He's got 7 sacks in the season. Did not play great versus Texas, but I think he'd be a quality pickup here, assuming they bring everybody back, except for Rashawn Gary. All right, Seattle round 1 took Emmanuel Pregnon to play right guard. Corners in play. I don't really love a lot of these corners, if I'm being honest with you, especially size-wise. The only one that I would maybe consider would be like a Dalen Everett, because he's got some arm length. He's got some juice. He can run a decent bit. He might be who I select here. I just don't know if Seattle would love him. I think this is a tough one. I like Manny Muhammad. I don't think he's a day 2 pick or a round 2 pick. I like Rivers a lot. He's more of a nickel. You don't need a nickel. AJ Harris. Ooh, I mean, rough year for him, but he kind of would be the guy that I think they would consider here. I think that's what I might do here. I'm going to take AJ Harris, who did not have the greatest of years, but also just hasn't been tested a crap ton. So we'll take AJ Harris there to pair opposite of Witherspoon. I'm going to assume they're going to bring back either Josh Jobe or Reek Woolen, one of the two. All right, LA's up. They took Spencer Fano and Chris Johnson. My days, can this team get enough? I'm going to look at a quarterback here. And I think this would maybe be, I don't want to say he's the guaranteed guy to be the replacement of Matthew Stafford, but I do think he would be a guy that they could develop and see if he is playing well during training camp and preseason, and maybe could be the successor after Stafford. But they also will have a first-round pick next year, too, where they could say, you know what, maybe we drafted a quarterback last year that just didn't really work out. In this particular draft, I think I would probably lean either Sam Leonard or Jaden Mayava. My thing is, I kind of think both these guys return to college for one more year. But if they don't, I'd lean Jaden Mayava a little bit more, because I think his play style actually kind of is similar to Stafford, but he's got to work on the arm a lot. His arm talent is just not nearly as close as Matthew Stafford, which kind of scares me a little bit. But I think in terms of processing speed and all that stuff, I'm going to take Jaden Mayava here to the LA Rams and let him sit there, and we'll see if he can be the guy. We'll see on that one. 62, the Broncos took Kenyon Sadiq round 1. I would like to find a receiver here, but Ian Strong is a good player. I don't think I'm going to take him here. They've invested a lot into that room. I wonder if they would consider running back here, but there's not really one that I would consider here. I mean, you did take RJ Harvey last year, and you're hoping J.K. Dobbins could be the guy, but obviously injuries kind of derailed his season. I wonder if they would consider Kaytron Allen, who's having a really good end to his season. He's working his way back up a little bit more after kind of a slowish start. He's not the fastest of guys, but you do have RJ Harvey. I hate taking Kaytron Allen here, but I might consider it. Let's see what else is on the board. Linebacker. I think I might go I'll go Jacob Rodriguez. Why not? F it. We'll go Jacob Rodriguez to add to that defense. Why not? Chicago up at 63. They took Caden McDonald. I would like to find some more juice off the edge, or Mason Thomas. Like, just give me that. That's a nice pickup here in the back of round 2. And lastly, at 64, the New England Patriots took Jennings Dunker. I'm gonna look at edge again here, and I mean, LT Overton is available. They need a pass rusher more so than that. I like Gabe Yakis here a decent bit, 6'3", 270. I want to go Gabe Yakis. This is somebody who I just watched a couple games of, and I think he's a good player. He can get after the quarterback a little bit. Obviously, 16.7% pass rush win rate. Got to be better against the run, but Illinois, they have some good players this year. I'll take Gabe Yakis here. But as you can see, this is our first round, and really quickly, I will scroll through our day 2 picks, as you can see on the screen right now. If you guys agree or disagree with any of the picks I made, make sure to let me know in the comment section below, and let me know who you would have taken if you disagree with any of my picks. And per usual, if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. We're on the road officially to 20,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And I love you guys. Peace.